Sheikh Hamza Yusuf.
Hi Riz, hi Hamza, hope you're nice. Actually, in my experience, I found that in all the states in USA, all the religious people from different culture, they are doing their religious activities very nicely. But my question is, after 1/11, is there the Muslims or any other religious people facing any problem to do their religious activities very freely?
Okay, so the impact of 9/11, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, what Rashid is asking is, following 9/11, have you seen any actual restrictions on people being able to practice their religion?
I think that in terms of travel, there has been problems for people that are Muslim. I think the government, to be fair, has tried to redress these oversights. Generally, though, I think American Muslims need to acknowledge the fact that there are still more hate crimes against the Jewish community, which is a profoundly enfranchised community in the United States. But there are still more hate crimes against the Jewish community than there are against the Muslim community. But what's troubling is the sentiment that has been increasing, and we're seeing a type of virulence of this attitude that's definitely on the increase. While there are not a lot of hate crimes against the Muslims, there are, and there have been mosques that have been attacked, even a few that have been burnt. Pigs' heads have been thrown in mosques, things like that. But generally, the Muslims, I think, have been protected in their houses and their homes. I think the FBI, despite some of the entrapment problems that have occurred, has tried to keep the Muslim community safe. So I want to be fair, and I do think that overall the Muslims are still in a good condition in the United States, but this constant barrage of attacks and presenting Islam as an evil religion, and the talk show radio hosts that day in and day out talk about this, these things take an effect, and I think that needs to be acknowledged. There is an acceptable attitude towards Muslims. Be critical of Islam. People can be critical of Islam. But the idea of mocking people, of attacking them, of calling them demonically inspired terrorists, that the Quran breeds terrorism, these things are just untruths that are being spread around as gospel.
Okay. Let me ask you to take a call from Oliver in Virginia, who's also been waiting patiently. Oliver, thanks. Go ahead. Oliver, you there?
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, my second question is that
Keep going. I think Rashid went back with you. Keep going.
I just want to know that do you think that this reflection has going to be another Western countries for the Muslims especially?
Okay, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, is there likely to be a parallel of what we're seeing in the USA and other countries? Now, we've seen it, of course, in parts of Europe.
Well, I think it's actually worse in Europe. I think that there is far more Islamophobia in Europe than there is in the United States. First of all, the Muslim community in Europe is far more disenfranchised than the Muslim community in the United States. I think Canada probably has the best record as far as I can tell. I think there's a lot of effort to allow the Muslim community to flourish in Canada. I think England has also tried to address these problems. Unfortunately, with the new government, there's been certain attitudes that are being presented. France has some really frightening aspects to what's going on there, and also in Germany and in other places. So the immigration to Europe, which was largely a labor immigration. People needed to rebuild Europe after the Cold War. There was a lot, after the World War II, there was a lot of people brought into Europe from Pakistan and from Africa. And because these people were largely labor people, they were marginalized, they were ghettoized, and there's also a mentality that goes with that. So I think, unfortunately, in Europe, you've had a lot of social problems that we don't have in the United States. Okay. The immigrant community to the United States, the Muslim immigrant community, is one of the most successful communities in the history of American immigration. And I think part of this pushback right now is very consistent with immigration patterns in American history. Americans have always been provincial about a new group that comes into America and have made it very difficult for them to become part of the American tapestry. So I think in some ways this is kind of an initiation into welcome to America.
John in D.C. is with us. John, go ahead.
Yes, people need to realize that in America, politics on the right is based on hatred. To get people to follow you, you must have an issue that they all can agree to hate. And Muslims are the latest victims of that. And also the 2.5% give back of the Muslim religion is much feared by the wealthy in America.
Okay, John, thank you for that. I'm going to add to what you're saying there with a comment about U.S. Congressman Peter King, who, as you know, Sheikh Hamza is behind the controversial move to investigate what he believes to be the radicalization of American Muslims. Now, I want to have our viewers and yourself listen to what he said about the reasons for these hearings before the House Homeland Security Committee.
The main purpose of this hearing also is to protect the Muslim community. I will have Muslims testifying tomorrow showing how they've intimidated in their own communities, how Al-Qaeda is radicalizing, and when they go to their leaders in the community, the leaders tell them to keep quiet. The leaders attempt to obstruct investigations.
What do you see coming out of these hearings, Sheikh Hamza?
Well, I think the previous caller made a good comment. The far right in the country, and I don't want to lump all the right together. There's people like Benjamin Weicker out there who are real conservatives that I actually respect, and so it's for me. I don't want to get into the melodramatic attitude of pure evil and pure good here. The left is good, the right is bad. I think in the secular left you'll find people that really hate Islam as well. In terms of King's hearings right now, we have a problem in the United States, undeniably. We've seen what they call homegrown terrorism. Some of it has been entrapment, undoubtedly, but unfortunately we had a lot of these people are individuals or a few people acting. They're not in a true sense of the definition that the State Department gives of terrorism. These are individuals acting out. I mean, we had a man that flew into an IRS building with his airplane, and that was not considered a terrorist act, even though he was protesting the high taxes in the United States and was influenced by a certain political ideology. On the other hand, somebody asked Bill Maher if his name was, or Bill Maher asked somebody if his name was Muhammad, would it be terrorism? And everybody kind of went silent. So I think anything that Muslims do right now, it's not seen as a lone nutcase. If the man in Arizona had been a Muslim, it would have been an act of terrorism, but instead it's looked at as a kind of isolated insanity. One of the things Nietzsche said that insanity is unusual in individuals, but it's common in groups. And so unfortunately we do have these small groups that behave in an insane manner, and instead of dealing with them and addressing the issues as a type of anomaly, I think the right is trying to lump these small groups of disenfranchised, very angry, hateful people into the greater